Hey y'all, we are back for part 2 of American Horror Stories. It is the second of 2 episodes in the new series of American Horror Story that is American Horror Stories that is going to be an anthology series, which I'm really looking forward to because I love a good anthology series. I was a huge fan of Tales from the Crypt. I've watched other anthology series such as Outer Limits and Tales of the Unexpected. So I'm all in on this season because I just am a big fan of anthologies. Now, in part 2 of American Horror Stories, they are actually going to get more so into the new relationship that develops with Scarlett and another one of the characters that we'll be introduced to in this second episode. They will also dive into her dad's marital troubles, so we'll get to see some of the issues that they have in their relationship that kind of come to the surface in this episode. And in typical American Horror Story fashion, they wrap up the second episode, so there are pretty much no loose ends, and we will have most of our questions answered by the second episode. Of course, we would love to see the story go on, but that is not what this anthology series is about. It is strictly about telling a new story every 1 or 2 episodes. I don't know how they're going to be doing it this season, if they're going to do 2 sets of an episode each time. So I'm not sure if next time we'll get an episode 3 and 4 that's going to be a part 1 and a part 2. So we will see. Now, one thing that I will say about this new anthology series, or actually more particular for these first 2 episodes of American Horror Stories, they picked a really good main character when they chose Scarlett to be the main character, because it seems like her hair is just another character within itself, because it is such a bright reddish orange color, and it just stands out against every color scheme in each scene of these 2 episodes. And it is just so beautiful how everything just comes together, and her hair kind of adds another dimension to each scene, and it really makes her stand out as the main character. Now, I know a lot of people who are fans of American Horror Story from Murder House all the way until 1984. We are used to seeing recurring actors and actresses from prior seasons of American Horror Story that will come back and make an appearance or have some sort of role in each new season of American Horror Story. And I feel like they're kind of trying to incorporate that into this new season of American Horror Stories. So we'll see. I would love to see some of my favorites pop back up on the screen that were from American Horror Stories. But, we'll see. Who knows? Now, what I do want to say is I really enjoyed these first 2 episodes of American Horror Stories. It did not disappoint. And I don't think I don't feel like any of the scenes were too dragged out, or I don't feel like there were scenes or information in there that just did not belong. Everything they did, it was just so calculated, and it just all came together in the end. So anybody who is thinking about watching American Horror Stories, I think you should give it a try. It's just a really good series, and I believe that you can kind of jump in on American Horror Stories if you have not seen any of the prior seasons of American Horror Story, and still be able to enjoy it without having to have prior knowledge. Now, these first 2 episodes do take place in Murder House. So, I guess they are kind of incorporating some things from the old American Horror Story, but they pretty much explain what goes on in the murder house as far as if someone dies in there, they are in there forever. So they kind of let a new viewer that's coming in, let them know what's going on so that they won't be lost, and they will not have needed to watch prior seasons of American Horror Story to understand everything that's going on. So once again, American Horror Story did an excellent job, and it was such a good idea to start this anthology series. So I would highly recommend this to anyone who's thinking about just jumping in and watching this, who wants to kind of get into the American Horror Stories genre that they have pretty much, I guess more so not a genre that they've created, but just as far as just the whole American Horror Stories world. So if you want to just go ahead and jump in on American Horror Stories, it's airing on Hulu, and we are now waiting on the 3rd episode. So I would give these first 2 episodes an A because I really enjoyed the storyline. The color scheme was beautiful. The main character that they chose to be in these first 2 episodes, which is Scarlet, she did such an amazing job. And the whole storyline itself, it was just good from the start to finish, and they tied up the loose ends at the end of the episode to kind of leave us off in a good place and be ready for episode 3. So good job, American Horror Stories, and y'all have a good night. Please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share this video, and I also want to add that for the duration of this season, I will be doing spoiler reviews. This is a non-spoiler review, but the episode is just, I just love the American Horror Stories, the idea of the anthology, because I'm a big fan of anthologies. So for the rest of this season, I will be doing spoiler reviews, and I will actually put that in the description of my video so that you'll know that they are going to be spoilers. So I will see you guys again after I watch the 3rd episode of American Horror Stories, after it is aired on Hulu. And y'all have a good night. I hope to see everybody come back for my 3rd review of American Horror Story.